Hello and welcome back to Hank's Yarncast. My name is Casey. I'm the owner and operator of Hank's Yarn Parlour in Belfast. Slightly different setup this week. As you can tell, I'm not in the shop this week. I'm actually at home. It's a little bit of an impromptu episode. I wasn't sure if I was actually going to record an episode or not this week, but it has been 4 weeks and I didn't really want to let it go any further than that. I don't have a ton of knitting to share with you guys. I've had a lot of other stuff going on in life right now, so not as much knitting has been getting done as I would like. But I guess I'll crack on and show you what I do have. I will also be showing you, since I don't have a ton of finished objects, I wanted to talk a bit about some previous knits that I've done, mostly like the warmest sweaters that I have knit in the last couple of years. The weather here in Belfast has just taken a turn. And it is, I think it was -1 today. It was snowing. That's very, very cold, and all my friends here are making fun of me because I'm the worst Canadian ever. But I'll tell you what, there's a reason that I left Canada. I'm not a fan of winter. I'm not a fan of the cold. I don't handle it very well. But I am looking forward to getting bundled up in some very lovely woolly jumpers. So anyway, I guess I'll just crack on. The only finished object that I have to share with you today is what I'm wearing. So this is the Cherry Puff sweater that if you were watching previous episodes, that I was doing a bit of surgery on because it had been a short sleeve. The original pattern is a long sleeve jumper, but I had shortened the sleeves on mine, just knit a short sleeve version at the time because that's all the yarn that I had. Ended up having to buy another skein of this yarn and then thought for a different jumper, and then thought, well, I'll go back and add the sleeves to it. And I'm so delighted because they are the perfect length. They're the perfect shape, and I had about 2 meters left from the skein, so winning a yarn chicken, always great, very satisfying. But I'm very pleased with how it turned out. It's just got like a little bit of the puff sleeve. I did make mine less puffy than what the pattern calls for, because I think otherwise, just the way that it kind of fits my body, the size that I picked, the shoulders would have been quite a bit larger than I would have liked. So I did modify it a little bit there. Throwing things on the floor, sorry about that. Yeah, it's got these lovely little eyelets that run down either sides. You're actually getting a little bit in this light. The lighting in my house, I didn't bring my lights home with me to record, so the lighting in here is rubbish, but actually, because it's warmer, I think you're getting a better representation of the true tone of this yarn, because on every other time I've shown it, it just looks black on the camera, but it is actually, it's a very, very, very deep brown. It's almost black, but it's got these little kind of threads of like maroon and orange through it, believe it or not. It's absolutely gorgeous. It feels lovely. So this is the John Arbon Devonia DK, and the colorway is called Cinder Glow, I believe. It feels absolutely delightful. So John Arbon, it's a British breeds. It is Blueface Leicester, and I want to say mass. I will double check on that. I will pop it up here if I'm incorrect. It might only be BFL, but I think it's Blueface Leicester and a massive mix. But anyway, it feels great. I can wear this next to my skin, no problem. I've just got a short sleeve blouse underneath it so you can kind of see the eyelet pattern. But yeah, very pleased with it now, and I think I will get much more wear out of it now in the winter time that it has long sleeves. So really chuffed with that. In terms of whips, I still also, the saga continues with the Knitter Stooge. But the good news is we're in the home stretch now. So I have cut the steek on it. which is actually kind of exciting because now you guys can see on the inside, that is all my ladderback jacquard, which I really am glad that I bothered to figure out how to do with this pattern, because there is so much stretch, so much more stretch than there is. So I did it up here as well, and like it's just incredible how much more stretchy that is. There's so much more give to it than just catching standard floats, which has really worked for the sleeves as well. Like if you've watched the previous episodes in the saga on this jumper, then you know the sleeves were a trial, just to get them to fit the recipient. But yeah, plenty of stretch there as well. And I will report, I have tried it on said recipient and it fits him so well. I'm so impressed with myself a little and I gotta blow my own horn a little bit sometimes, because the math on this and the alterations that it took, it was not easy. It took a lot of back and forth, a lot of ripping it, a lot of frogging happened with this. But you know what? It was worth it in the end. Now that I've actually seen it on him, it's obviously not quite finished. It still needs the collar and the button bands, but otherwise it does fit him really well. I made another slight modification to the pattern. So the pattern, this is steeked, which I think I just said that I've cut the steek on it. Now the pattern has you carry the steek kind of the whole way up the front to where the neckband would be, but I actually stopped it after the last color work chart, cast off the steek there, and then just knit the rest of the jumper back and forth for the neckline shaping and kind of across the back and shoulders. And the reason for that is so once we got past there, then you start shaping the neckline, so you're getting decreases that go in opposite directions, and I knew I wanted to try this on the recipient before I cut the steek, because I wanted to make sure that it fit him, because once you cut a steek, there's no going back from that. You can't really recycle the yarn, because you'll just have a couple meters of yarn for each row, like it's all severed. So you can't really frog it after that. So I figured if I cast off the steek, I don't know if you can see where it kind of would have joined. It's all rolling in on itself now. So yeah, it would have been joined there, and then the neckline shaping kind of goes V-wise. So there's a shawl collar that goes on this, but by only bringing the steek up that far, it was essentially a V-neck pullover, so I was able to just slip it over him. If I had done the steek the whole way up, then the top of this would have been closed. He probably would have barely got his head through it, let alone his shoulders. So anyway, that worked really well for me. So the only thing that is left for me to do now is pick up an absurd amount of stitches for the button band. I actually did have them picked up once, but I did notice that there was a little mistake next to one of my raglans. And normally I'm the kind of person that would just let that go, or maybe fix it. It was a little hole. Just one of the stitches was a bit looser than it should be. I added a few short rows to the back of this, just to make the back and the shoulders sit a little bit higher than the front. And in my short row shaping, I managed to end up with a little bit of a hole right next to one of these. Yeah, you can kind of see it there. So I'm gonna go back and just redo that really quickly. I didn't get very far with the neckband, and I just thought, no, that's gonna annoy me, so I pulled it all back. But now I gotta re-pick up all those stitches, and I think the grand total stitch count for the collar is like 300, works out to about 352 stitches, I think, something absurd like that anyway. So it took a while to pick up. It is going to take a while to pick it up again, but it, I think, will be worth fixing that mistake. And then as soon as that's done, I'm going to add some pockets to this as well, because like I had said in previous episodes that my biggest regret of my own Knitter's Dude is that it doesn't have pockets. I actually have that regret for a number of cardigans, like these kind of big, that like this is Aran weight. These kind of bigger like I would consider them more of like a jacket almost. And for some reason, yeah, I'm constantly finding myself going to put my hands in my pockets, whether it's, you know, slip my phone in there or something like that, and then the pocket's not there, and I'm like, oh yeah, no pockets. So, so what I'm gonna do is put in an afterthought pocket down here at the bottom somewhere. I think I'm going to put the opening for the pocket like just under this band here, and that still gives kind of enough space under here that he'll be able to actually fit his hands in the pockets. So if it's cool out, he can tuck them in there to warm them up or put his phone in them. I think I'm going to line the pockets as well, just with some quilting cotton. I have some of the other cardigans that I actually have bothered to put pockets on. My only complaint is that because obviously the knitting is stretchy, so if you put anything weighty in there or anything that might be kind of pokey, like keys, they kind of poke out of the yarn, or they're dragging the knitting down, they're just stretching it out a little bit, so kind of pulls your cardigan out of shape, which is not ideal. So I'm hoping that if I line the pockets just with a bit of quilting cotton, that will not happen, or I won't weigh the whole thing down. So that is next steps for this boyo, and then once I've got the button band on the pockets, I'll give it a block, and oh, still have to pick up buttons for it actually. I did decide in the end, because we had discussed as well as zipper, but we are going to go for buttons. And so I guess we'll have to pick out buttons for it, but really, really pleased with how this has turned out, and he seems to be as well, so happy days. That is pretty much all of the knitting that I have been working on. This sweater has been pretty much consuming all of my knitting time, which unfortunately I haven't really had an awful lot of time to do as much knitting lately as I would like to. But I will share with you a few of the other jumpers that, some of them are a few years older, and some of them are ones that I knit kind of within the last year. Now that the weather is cold, I'm definitely reaching for the warmest jumpers that I've ever made. So, yeah, I'll get started. I think I might, well, I try them on so that you can see what they look like on me. Okay, so you're gonna have to bear with me just a moment or two while I have a quick wardrobe change. Okay, so my hair is probably doing crazy things now. So first up, this is the Kosekofte by Cinder Glow. I was actually wearing this one in the shop earlier today. It's definitely cozy. This is, so it's a cardigan again. This is another steeked cardigan actually. So this is by Cinder Glow, which is the same designer actually, I forgot to mention, as the cherry puff that I was just wearing. I adore her patterns. She's everything is just so well considered in the way that she writes them, and yeah, love her designs. In fact, I think there's another one in the file here that I'm going to show you. But so I knit this in Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. It's a brown and a beige. I can't remember what colors they are, but I will see. I think I've got a couple skeins left over that are in my stash somewhere, so I will pop the numbers for those up here. And I actually find, like, this is a pretty inexpensive, and I don't really want to say it's rustic. It's not rustic. It's not superwash, which is great for color work. It's got just enough toothiness though. It's not scratchy at all, but it is really good all rounder. And I think to do like a massive cardigan like this, I'll just actually, I'm gonna sit up a little bit that you can see what it's like around the bottom. It's got tons of positive E's on here for me. I think I've got about 8 or 10 inches of positive E's. I knit this one, this would have been pre-pandemic that I knit this actually. I want to say 2018. Might have been 2019, I can't remember exactly. It's not important, but so what I like the most about this design actually, so as I mentioned, this is steeked, but what I love about the button bands here when you pick these up, so they're knit in stockinette and then folded over, and then when you bind them off, you're tacking them down on the inside so that all of the kind of rough ends from cutting the steek are all inside the button band. So they're hidden, and this is like the neatest finish. And of course, because it's double layered, it's like just extra plush, and it feels lovely, and it also kind of helps the structure of the garment, I think, because otherwise I think just the weight of the wool would be really pulling this kind of downward like this, but it just kind of gives it a little more structure. Can button it up, see what it looks like that way. There we go. And the cuffs on this actually are also doubled over, so really lovely and cozy. They're not like super tight, but they're just kind of close enough that you're not going to end up with a draft coming up your sleeve or anything silly like that. Really, really enjoyable to knit. The colorwork pattern, so it's a drop sleeve. So you're knitting the body in the round. The armholes are steeked as well. And then after you cut those, you're just picking up around the armhole and then knitting downward, I believe, is how that was constructed. Easy peasy. And honestly, this is the first jumper I ever steeked. And yeah, the first time, utterly terrifying. Once I got through that and the jumper survived and has survived many, many wears, I'm not afraid of steeking anymore. In fact, like, if I ever come across colorwork patterns that are knit flat, I'm like, not a chance. I'm definitely going to steek that. It's so much easier than trying to faff purling colorwork. I mean, it can be done, but I just don't find it to be an enjoyable experience whatsoever. So yeah, this is Kosekofte by Cinder Knits in Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. Alright, so next up, this one's actually a little bit of a Franken jumper. So I had seen a pattern, I think it was on Pinterest, which did eventually lead me to a Ravelry link, and I'm so sorry that I'm totally blanking on the name, but the pattern had this really lovely kind of herringbone color work around the bottom, kind of 2/3 of it. So let's see that. And I was really, really taken by it. It was quite striking, but it was actually knit, I believe, in 4 plies. So there was quite a few more herringbones. They were quite a bit narrower, more repeats of that pattern, and it was lovely. But the yarn that I wanted to use, I really wanted to use chunky wool. I wanted like a really big jumper is kind of what I had in mind at that point. So what I ended up doing actually is looking for a chunky pattern that I could kind of adapt a similar motif to. So I ended up landing on another Cinder Knits pattern, and that is, it's called Pure Fuzz. I'll pop a photo of it up here so you can see what the original one looks like. It's just a really cute, boxy, chunky jumper, and I believe she knit the original one that she did. She knit in I believe it's 2 strands of 4-ply, but one of them is a fuzz, either a mohair or I think a Syria alpaca. So with the 2 of those together with the fuzz, that kind of gets her up to a bulky weight. I think the gauge is about 15 or 16 stitches per 10 centimeters. And it's super cute. I'm really tempted actually to do another one, just a plain one with maybe some alpaca as well, and just have a lovely fuzzy jumper. But I'm really pleased with how this turned out. So I used Kremke Soul's Merry Merino for this jumper. Now they make Merry Merino in a few different ways. So this is Merry Merino 70, which would be your chunkier, your bulky weight. And they also make it in 110, which is Aran, and they make one that is 140, which is DK. So each one of those, the 70 meters, 110, 70, 110, and 140 refer actually to the meterage per 50 grams. So each ball has 70, 110, or 140 meters. And this is a superwash merino. It's got a little bit more drape to it than some of my other jumpers do, which I really like. I actually really love that the sleeves kind of, when I blocked it, because it is superwash, sorry, I'm just realizing. It is a little bit bally, but I'm kind of hoping, because I only knit this one a couple of months ago and I haven't actually worn it that much yet. I kind of think that this is just going to be the initial ballies, which is totally expected with softer yarns, particularly superwash merino. It happens. I think my wool comb is probably back in the shop at the moment, so this guy is going to need a good bit of a going over. But once that kind of initial ballies goes away, then I find that it kind of wears a lot better at that stage, that it won't pill much more. So it's navy and grey. Again, sorry for the utterly terrible lighting in here, but yeah, I'm really, really pleased with how there's a little bit of kind of shaping at the back. You probably can't see here. I have a little bit of short row shaping just to lift it. Super quick knit. Absolutely flew through this. I think it only took me maybe like 10 days to knit this. Like, it just, a few hours a day, and I just absolutely flew through it. And again, it's got quite a bit of positive ease in it as well. Not quite as much as the cardigan, but still loads of room for fitting extra layers underneath it, which is really important in a big bulky sweater to me. And yeah, I think it looks really good. It fits really well. Sorry, I'm just going to sit up here a little bit better so you can kind of see the torso in it. It doesn't lift up at the back either, which I really like, because I have a problem with a lot of my jumpers just want to like sit up like this. Not a great look, but yeah, really pleased with that. It does, like, again, this, even though I said I would like to wear this with a load of layers underneath it to really kind of keep myself warm, this is so soft. It is definitely next to skin. Like, I don't even feel like I'm wearing wool at all. It's lovely. Really, really like how it fits. Really love how the yarn feels. And it was a delight to work with as well. And did definitely take a few balls to get this one. And I think I used 9 of the navy in the end, and about 4, maybe 5 of the grey. But absolutely delighted with this one. All right, I will show you the next one. Okay, so this is, I'm definitely gonna have to stand up and show you what this looks like, because it is quite baggy. This is the November jacket by Petite Knit, and this is an Oliver brioche pattern with a double knit button band. And I absolutely, and the cuffs and the hem are also double knit. and I actually really, really adore this. I was really looking for a cardigan at the time, so I knit this one in January this year. And I was really looking for a cardigan where I didn't have to pick up stitches for the button band, because to be honest with you, that's one of the biggest turn-offs for me of working a cardigan, is that, you know, it's almost like a third sleeve that you have to do. So I really wanted something that I could knit the button band at the same time as the rest of the cardigan. And it was actually one of my very lovely customers had come in. She was knitting this pattern, and she came in to get a bit of help with the one that she was knitting. So that's kind of how where I saw it for the first time, and absolutely fell in love with it. And right then and there I said, no, I'm gonna have to make myself one of those at some point. But the thought of doing an entire garment in brioche was a little bit daunting. But eventually convinced myself that wasn't as daunting as picking up 300 odd stitches for a button band. So we went with that, and it's quite clever construction. It's top down, so you start off actually at the center back of the neck, to kind of build up that little bit of the button band at the, actually if I just turn around you might be able to sort of see where the raglan here kind of meets that. Just turn it around. So you kind of pick up, you're knitting kind of like a little strip to begin with of double knitting, which is the start of the band, and then you pick up, you kind of turn your work 90 degrees, and you're picking up stitches along the long edge of that strip, and then you're going from there. Really clever. Also, one other thing that I loved about this pattern is that I learned how to do a vertical button band, and that was much more enjoyable than, and much neater looking, I think, than horizontal button bands, or buttonholes, I should say, rather. So horizontal buttonhole usually involves casting off a couple of stitches and then casting them on again in the next row. Or it might be, if you're only using like really small buttons, then there might be like a yarn over and a knit two together, kind of like an eyelet sort of situation there to make the button bands, or to make the buttonholes rather. But I really struggle to get those to look neat. So what I love about these, they're almost actually sort of worked like a short row, where when you kind of come to a point that you're doing the button, you're kind of leaving a few stitches on the outside to just sort of hang out, and then you're knitting back and forth these couple of stitches like across the whole row, but when you come back to the end where that is, so you're just knitting that for so many rows for the kind of the height that the button hole needs to be, and then you come back and at the other ones. Now, as you're doing this, when you're kind of coming back and forth, you are leaving extra yarn here for the extra stitches that are going to be knit over here afterwards. So you're not having to cut and reattach the yarn, which would mean more ends to weave in, which everybody knows is like my least. If I can avoid weaving in ends, like if I just, let's make as few ends as possible. I will see if I can find the tutorial video that I used to learn to make these buttonholes, and I'll link it below. But yeah, so this is knit in Camero's Lamold. So that is a 50% wool and 50% llama mix, and it's a single ply. And I know a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't knit sweaters or anything that gets that kind of wear in single ply yarn, but I completely disagree. Does it pill? Is it getting? Absolutely it does. But also it's a fuzzy fiber to begin with. Like the the llama in it. It would be similar to alpaca, and like it has a natural halo. And does it get a bit bally? Yeah, of course it does. But it's so soft. It's very, very soft, and it's got lovely drape, and it's just so cozy. And like I just feel like the more I wear it, and the more like, yeah, you can see here on the sleeves, like, yeah, it's kind of a bit bally. But that's nothing that a wool comb can't fix. Like if this gets too out of hand, just kind of clean her out and give it a few passes. It's not that big of a deal. And it doesn't mean that your yarn is any lesser quality if it pills. Okay? It's natural that soft fibers want to do that, particularly under the arms, because that's where the garment is like really rubbing on itself. So normally, guys, what I would recommend, and I wish I had brought mine home to show you guys, I really like these little wool combs. I'll throw a photo up here by the Knitting Barber. They're incredible. I mean, they're £6.50, and they will take all of the bobbles off of your knits. They work really well for things like jersey fabric as well. Like if you've got a good hoodie that is starting to get really bally, you can give it a couple passes of this as well, and it's absolutely great. The only kind of caveat that I would say is I probably wouldn't use that particular one on cashmere, just because it's quite a as wool combs go, I think that it's got kind of one of the rougher edges on it, so it might just be a little bit harsh for cashmere. But in that case, if you've got a cashmere garment, then I would recommend the pony wool combs. They're absolutely great. So I never really bother with fancy electric shaver kind of jobs. I don't think they're necessary. Wool combs have always worked for me, so that is what I would recommend. If your knits are looking a little bit sad, then you need a little bit of a refresh. Grab yourself a wool comb. Oh, what else can I say about this? I mean, this is okay. So this is one that the pattern does have pockets, and they're knit on. So they're a patch pocket. They're knit on afterward. And I didn't line them, and I do find that, again, when I put things in these pockets, like if I grab my phone right here, like, let go with the jumper, like it's just kind of sagging down, like I can feel the weight of my phone pulling on all of this material, and also my keys poke through it if I put my keys in my pocket. So yeah, I'm not really sure how to go about lining a pocket after the fact, like after it's already attached to the garment. I don't know how realistic it is to do that. If you have any experience doing that, please let me know in the comments, and maybe you could point me in the right direction of a tutorial if that's even a thing. Yeah. If you've been to the shop, you've probably seen me wearing this a million times. I've been practically living in it this year, and it does nothing but get softer every time I wear it. So I absolutely adore it. It's probably the cuddliest cardigan that I own, and yeah, absolutely adore it. Okay, I've got one more that I want to show you quickly. This one's a pullover again. Hang on one sec. All right. So this one is probably the warmest one that I own. This is Treelight by Jennifer Steingass. Absolutely adore her colorwork yoke patterns. I've knit, oh gosh, it must have been 5 or 6 of them already, I think. So I've knit this one. So this is Treelight. I've knit Drama. I'll pop the photos up here. Winter Soul. Fern and Feather was the first one I made. I think that's all the ones that got finished. I did also cast on her Dark Water jumper. Really like the pattern of this one. I think I want to take another stab at it, but I did have, this is kind of my one caveat with Jen Steingass. Okay, I have noticed, and I've had some other people in the shop comment on this as well, that I really struggle to meet gauge for her patterns with similar yarns. So Darkwater uses, if I remember correctly, now I haven't looked at this pattern in a little while, but if I remember correctly, Darkwater uses a 4-ply yarn. But the gauge, I think, is either 22 or 23 stitches per 4 inches or 10 centimeters, which I think I wasn't getting a fabric that I was happy with at that gauge. With the couple of yarns that I tried, they were just a little bit too fine. So I could see how that would give it a really nice drape, having it a little bit more open. But my problem is that it was so open that I could see the floats behind the stitches. So yeah, several attempts at that, a few different yarns tried, and I couldn't quite get anything that I was really happy with. So I do want to revisit it. I might try a DK weight yarn instead, and see how that goes. But yeah, she does. Her gauge is just, it's a bit bizarre. I don't know how else to say it. There are just some of the gauge and the yarn combinations are just a bit weird. But this one I had no trouble with. So this is knit in Let Lopi. And this is the first time that I knit with Let Lopi. I knit Drema right after this one also in the Let Lopi. Really adored this pattern. So that's the yarn that she recommended, and I can't recall what all the shades are, but it is the shades that she recommends in the pattern is actually I think probably one of the first times that I actually picked exactly the same yarn and colors as what was in the sample, because as soon as I saw it, it was just like, that's absolutely gorgeous. I have that. So again, it's top down circular yoke. No really long floats to catch on this one. Everything's like relatively short. I don't think you're going any more than 5 stitches, so you're not even really having to worry about catching the floats. I kind of have a rule. Everybody's got their own rule about how often they catch floats, but mine is that I try not to go more than an inch of fabric before I need to catch it. Which means, and that's on garments, like it's obviously if you're knitting something like mittens or socks where smaller things can get caught in them, then it's more like half an inch for me on those sorts of things. But on a jumper, yeah, about an inch, which in an Aran weight yarn, 18 stitch gauge is going to be 4 or 5 stitches. Probably about 5 stitches is probably my max. I could probably stretch it to 6 if I wanted to. But then on a 4-ply weight jumper, then that same amount of stitches, it might be 8 stitches before I'm bothering to catch a float. That's always worked for me. I know some people swear by hell or high water, they will catch every 3 stitches, but I find that when I do that, actually my garments come out just like tighter, if anything else. So definitely good practice to catch floats where needed, but I find that, yeah, doing it every couple of stitches is just a little excessive. But this yarn was really interesting to work with. So if you've never knit with Let Lopi, it's I don't even know if you could really say that it is spun. It's very very loosely spun, I would say. In fact, actually, I think I might have a spare ball. Hold on one tick. I'll see if I've got a spare bit hanging about. Right, okay, so I've actually got a fair bit left of this. I mean, there's like, there's sweater quantities worth there between this one and the Drema that I knit. Loads of leftovers. I should probably look for a pattern for that, but okay. So this is what this looks like. It is spun, but it's very, very loose. And it's a little bit, you can kind of see it's a little bit kind of thick and thin, like it's not super uniform. It's not like crazy out or anything, but just try to get that to focus on the yarn, not my face. So what I will say about this, because it is so loosely spun, and it is essentially it's not a single ply. There are, like, I can untwist this and kind of get 2 plies out of it. Yeah, so there's like, it's like 2 very fuzzy, very big. But kind of what I didn't realize about this until I started knitting with it is that the break strength on this is like nothing. Like, it just comes apart so easily without really pulling on it. So and because I'm a tight knitter, there does tend to be an awful lot of tension on my yarn, so it was breaking quite a bit for me. So, but to be fair, it was a really good lesson for me to just learn to relax and take my time and to not pull so hard on my yarn. So yeah, bit of a learning curve, but I absolutely adore it. And like, once it's knit up, like as a jumper, it's tough as nails. This thing has taken a beating. It is very, very hard wearing once you kind of have it knit up into a garment, which is a little surprising. Like, obviously when I started knitting with it, I was really kind of getting a bit apprehensive and anxious about, oh my gosh, is my sweater gonna fall apart as soon as I snag it on something? But no, it has. So I finished this one, I believe Christmas 2019, thereabouts, just before Christmas, and I wear it all the time when it's like in the wintertime. It's definitely the warmest one that I own. Now, having said that, this is very rustic yarn. It's, I think, really designed to be more of an outerwear garment than a layering piece. So you want to have layers underneath this. And quite frankly, I'm totally okay with that as well. Like, I'm not that concerned about most of my yarn being next to skin soft, unless it is something perhaps that has like a funnel neck on it or something that's gonna like really irritate around there. But if it's cold enough for me to wear this, I've definitely got a long sleeve shirt on underneath it, probably in fact a thermal layer underneath it. Like, once again, worst Canadian ever. I absolutely hate being cold, but yeah, it's so warm, so cozy, and without being heavy either. That is kind of the other nice thing about the Lopi, even though this like is quite openly spun. I'm not describing that very well, but just the nature of its spun, it's a lot of air, so it's keeping a lot of the heat on the inside, but it doesn't weigh a ton. It's actually very light. The whole sweater probably weighs about 350 or 400 grams. Like, it's next to nothing for an Aran weight jumper. It's got the hem and the cuffs are just done in a lovely squishy garter stitch, and so is the neck. Actually, sorry, this is garter, or did I do a neck cord? Nope, it is garter. I can't remember actually. I think that is in the pattern. I think it was Fern and Feather that I modified. So Fern and Feather, I think, actually just has like a roll neck on it, like a little kind of curled over stockinette bit on it that I wasn't a massive fan of. So I did put, I went back and picked up the neckband and just did a bit of ribbing on it, and it was fine. But yeah, this one just has a few rows of garter, so it doesn't roll, but I kind of like it's just a little bit different than the ribbing. It's just a nice change. But yeah, the same thing goes all the way around to the back. This one has the short rows actually underneath the colorwork section here, just a few, and that is kind of keeping, it's not really lifting the neck too much. Like, you can move my hair. So it actually, the neck on this one actually sits a little bit lower. But what I do appreciate about having a few short rows here is that it's keeping the bottom hem from doing that funny thing where it rides up like a lot of my other jumpers do. So I do like that it's keeping that nice and snug around my bottom where it belongs, so no drafts coming in that way either. Right, so those are kind of my top 4 cozy jumpers for the winter season. Of course I do have more, but we could be here all night. Let me just have a quick think here. Shop news. What is going on in the shop? So the Hank's Autumn Cal is still on. It is on until November 30th, so there's about another week. Yeah, I think about another week to get your submissions in for that. So just to remind you, any 6 of my patterns are eligible for that. So you just need to have started it, post a photo on Instagram, remember to use the hashtag HanksAutumnCal2024, and also please tag the shop at Hanks Yarn Parlor. If you're interested in learning how to steek in your local, there's still a couple of spots left in the steeking workshop that is on November 28th. This podcast is going out on Saturday, so that'll be the following Thursday, November 28th. But I would recommend that you get on top of that as soon as possible, because you will need to pick up your kit beforehand to knit the cup cozy so that we can steek it in the class. But it's a really small project and it's super quick. It would not take you more than, like, even for a slow knitter, I don't think it would take more than 2 hours, like an evening kind of time to whip it up. I think that's everything that I had to talk to you about this week. What else is going on? Anything? Nope, I don't think so. So thank you so much for joining me if you've made it this far. And if you'd like to, please share in the comments what your kind of go-to pattern for your coziest jumper is. Hopefully this has given you a little bit of inspiration if you're looking for something to knit this winter to keep yourself warm. And yeah, so I will see you next time. I'm hoping, by the way, I realize it's been about 4 weeks since the last one came out, but I'm hoping that I'll be with you again in a fortnight's time, and hopefully we can make that a little bit more of a regular thing. So anyway, thank you so much again for joining me. You can find me at Hanks Yarn Parlor on Instagram and Facebook and Ravelry, and also at hanksyarnparlor.com. I will link to all of that fun stuff, and all of the kind of pattern and yarn notes for the jumpers that I showed you will be in the show notes below as well. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.